They said a prince's heart was not his own. It belonged to the throne, to the people, to tradition older than memory. They said love was a weakness that could bring kingdoms to their knees. But on the night Prince Kadim heard a girl singing by the river, every law ever carved into stone, every warning whispered by elders, shattered like clay and fire, because love does not ask permission. In the golden kingdom of Zaruma, where sunlit towers pierced the sky and royal drums marked the passing of time, Prince Kadim was raised for one purpose only: to rule. From childhood, his days were measured in lessons: how to command, how to negotiate, how to sacrifice. His tutors taught him strategy, the elders taught him restraint, and his father taught him this single truth: a prince does not follow his heart. He carries the kingdom on his shoulders. Kadim listened. He obeyed. But deep inside, something in him remained untouched, a quiet longing he could not name. His future had already been written: a political marriage to a distant princess, an alliance sealed not by love, but by power, a crown heavy with expectation. Love was never part of the plan. Far beyond the palace walls, where royalty never lingered, lived Amara. She was a village girl, the daughter of a weaver, seller of cloth dyed with earth and patience. Every morning she sat beside the river, her fabrics spread like captured sunsets, her laughter floating freely on the breeze. She sang while she worked, soft songs passed down by women before her, songs of waiting, of hope, of hearts that dared to feel. Amara had no crown, no guards, no destiny carved by others, but she had something rarer, a heart that had never learned fear. They lived in the same kingdom, yet in different worlds. One evening, burdened by the weight of palace walls, Prince Kadim did something forbidden. He left. Dressed as an ordinary man, he slipped past the royal gates, seeking silence, seeking breath. That was when he heard her voice. It rose from the riverbank, gentle, haunting, alive. He stopped mid-step. When he saw her, time seemed to hesitate. Then he heard her voice again. It was not loud. It was not trying to impress. It was a kind of singing meant only for the heart. Kadim slowed his steps. By the riverbank, a young woman sat with her feet in the water, fabric spread around her like petals. Her hands moved with care, dipping cloth into earthen bowls of dye-deep indigo, warm rust, golden brown. She sang as she worked. For a moment, Kadim simply watched. When a twig snapped beneath his foot, she looked up startled, cautious, curious. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, lifting his hands. "I didn't mean to frighten you." Amara studied him. She has never seen the face around. He did not look like the men who came. From the palace, no arrogance, no sharp commands in his voice. "You were listening," she said softly. "Most people don't." He smiled, a little embarrassed. "I didn't know I was allowed to leave once I started." That made her laugh light, unguarded. That laugh reached something in him that years of royal training never had. "Can I sit here?" he asked. "Yes, please," she replied. They talked easily, about small things at first: the river, the heat, the way cloth changed color in water. He asked questions. She answered honestly. No one had ever listened to Kadim without expectation before, and no one had ever spoken to Amara without measuring what she could give. By the time the sun dipped low, it felt as though they had known each other longer than a single evening. Before leaving, Kadim hesitated. "Will you be here tomorrow?" he asked. Careful not to sound hopeful, Amara smiled. This is where I work. This is where I am. That night, for the first time in years, the prince slept without dreams of duty. He returned, not as a prince, not as someone important, just as Kadim. Amara showed him how to tie the cloth, how to fold, twist, bind with string before dipping it into dye. Too tight, she teased when his knots failed. Are you always this serious? He laughed an unguarded sound that surprised even him. My life doesn't allow mistakes, he admitted. Then you should make some here, she said, guiding his hands. This is where colors forgive you. His fingers brushed hers. Neither pulled away. One evening, as the sky burned orange and purple, Amara gathered her things. You can walk with me, she said casually, as if it meant nothing. But to Kadim, it meant everything. Her home was simple. Clay walls, a cooking fire, warmth. Her mother greeted him kindly, never suspecting the truth. You're welcome to stay, she said. Anyone who walks with my daughter is a friend. They cooked together, laughing when smoke filled the air, arguing playfully over spices. Amara splashed water at him while washing bowls. He chased her like a boy with nothing to lose. For the first time, Kadim felt ordinary, and it felt like freedom. Days turned into weeks. They listened to each other. He spoke of pressure, of expectations, without names or titles. She spoke of dreams, of wanting more than survival. Sometimes they sat in silence, close enough to feel each other's warmth. Sometimes they laughed until their sides hurt. Love did not arrive loudly. It arrived gently, then stayed. They grew eager for dusk, for the river, for each other. No one in the palace noticed his absences. No one questioned his softened smile, because love, when hidden, can be invisible even to those closest. That evening the river was unusually quiet. No laughter, no teasing, only the soft sound of water brushing against stone. Prince Kadim sat beside Amara, but his body was tense, his hands restless. He stared at the river as if it might answer a question he was afraid to ask. Amara noticed immediately. You've been quiet, she said softly. You only do that when something is troubling you. He tried to smile, failed. She turned fully toward him. Talk to me. Kadim swallowed. For weeks, love had lived between them without words, in glances, in shared meals, in the way he followed her home as though nowhere else existed. But words were heavier. Amara. He began, then stopped. His heart pounded. This was harder than facing elders, harder than carrying a crown. I've never said this to anyone before, he admitted. My life has never allowed it. She reached for his hand, not to rush him, but to steady him. I'm listening, she said. He took a breath, then another. I care about you, he said at last, his voice low but steady. It took me time to understand what this feeling really was. He met her eyes, calm and sincere. I admire your laughter, even when I'm too serious. The way you listen, the way you remind me to slow down and be present. A quiet moment passed, gentle and comforting. Amara's eyes brightened. She smiled, warm and knowing. I had a feeling you'd say that someday, she said softly. He paused. She nodded slightly. I feel the same way, Kadim. In simple moments, in everyday conversations, in the way we understand each other. His breath caught. For a moment the world felt complete. But love, once spoken, demands truth. Amara noticed the shadow that returned to his face. "You're afraid," she said gently. "This isn't all, is it?" Kadim looked away. "What worries you?" she asked. "Tell me." His fingers tightened around hers. "There is something about me," he said slowly. "Something I should have told you from the beginning." Her smile faded not with fear, but concern. "You don't trust me?" she asked quietly. "I trust you with my heart," he replied. "That is why I'm terrified." He stood, pacing once, then stopped in front of her. "I didn't lie because I wanted to deceive you," he said. "I lied because I wanted to stay." She rose too now, facing him. "Kadim," she said, steady and calm, "talk to me." He closed his eyes, then opened them. "I am Prince Kadim of Zaruma." The words hung between them like thunder after lightning. Amara stared at him. The man who tied dye with clumsy fingers. The man who cooked with her. Who laughed. Who loved. A prince. Her hand slipped from his. "You're the prince?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, voice breaking. "And I am still the man who loves you." Tears filled her eyes, not yet falling. "All this time," she said, "you walked beside me, ate at my table. Let my mother welcome you." "I never wanted to hurt you," he said quickly. "I wanted one place where I could be free." She turned away, breathing hard. He did not follow, because love respects silence. Amara did not scream. She did not run. She stood frozen, as if the river itself had turned to stone beneath her feet. A prince. The truth echoed painfully in her chest. Her eyes darted toward the path, toward the village, toward the shadows where anyone could be watching. Fear took hold of her voice. "Kadim," she whispered urgently, stepping back. "You must go." He reached for her, but she shook her head. "No," she said, her hands trembling. "You don't understand. If anyone sees us together, if the palace finds out," her breath came in shallow gasps. "They won't punish you," she continued, tears forming. "They'll punish me. And my mother." She pressed her hand to her chest, struggling to stay upright. "I know what the king is capable of," she whispered. "I've seen what happens to those who cross the throne." Kadim's heart clenched. "I would protect you," he said firmly. She shook her head again, fierce now. "You can't protect us from tradition, from fear, from power." Her voice broke. "Please," she begged, gripping his arms. "Go, and never come back." The words tore her apart as she spoke them. "Let me forget you before love destroys everything I have." Kadim did not move away. Instead, he pulled her into his arms tight, desperate, as if letting go would end the world. "I love you," he said against her hair. "I love you too much to leave you in fear." She struggled weakly, tears spilling freely now. "You will marry a princess," she sobbed. "That is your fate." He held her face gently, forcing her to look at him. "There will be no marriage," he said, voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "Not unless it is you." Her tears fell harder. "I will never belong to anyone else," he continued. "No throne, no alliance, no crown." She collapsed into him, her strength gone. "I'm afraid," she cried bitterly. "I don't want my love to cost my mother her life." Kadim held her as her sobs shook her body, his own eyes burning. "I would lose everything before I lose you," he whispered. And if loving you is dangerous, then I choose the danger." They stayed like that for a long time, by the river that had witnessed their beginning. Amara's tears soaked his chest. His arms refused to loosen. For the first time, love was no longer gentle. It was fierce, defiant, and afraid. And somewhere beyond the palace walls, destiny was already moving toward them. Prince Kadim was summoned at dawn, not by messenger, not by drum, by silence. The guards who escorted him said nothing as they led him into the inner chamber, the place King Jabari used only when mercy was not invited. The king stood with his back to Kadim, staring out at the kingdom from the high window. "You have been wandering," King Jabari said calmly. Kadim did not answer. "You leave without guards. You return with dirt on your feet and peace in your eyes." The king turned slowly. "Tell me, my son," he said, voice low and dangerous, "what have you found outside these walls that the throne could not give you?" Kadim lifted his head. "I found myself," he said. The room went still. King Jabari's expression hardened not in anger, but in disappointment, sharpened into threat. "Kings do not search for themselves," he said. "They are built whether they like it or not." Kadim's fists clenched. "There is a woman," the king continued, circling him now. "A village girl. No title. No protection." Kadim's heart pounded. "She has made you forget who you are." "She has made me remember," Kadim replied. The king stopped. For the first time, rage cracked through his calm. "You mistake affection for power," King Jabari said sharply. "And power is something I will not lose. Not to love, not to weakness, and certainly not to a girl who knows her place." Kadim stepped forward. "If you harm her," the king raised a hand. "You will do nothing," he said, "because everything you are belongs to this crown." He leaned in close. "End it, or I will." That very afternoon, the palace drums thundered, loud, triumphant, unavoidable. The people gathered. Elders assembled. Messengers rode through the streets. Prince Kadim stood beside his father, his face carved from stone. King Jabari raised his staff. "People of Zaruma," he proclaimed, "the future of this kingdom is secured." The crowd murmured in approval. "By ancient law and royal blood," the king continued, "Prince Kadim is formally betrothed to Princess Zainara of the Eastern Kingdom." Gasps, cheers, celebration. But Kadim heard only one thing, the sound of Amara's heart breaking, wherever she was. In the village, Amara dropped the cloth she was dyeing as the announcement echoed through the streets. Her mother's hands trembled. "So it is true," she whispered. "He is to be married." Amara said nothing. Her chest felt hollow. Love had been erased with a single sentence spoken by a king. That night, Kadim stood alone in his chamber. The crown lay untouched on the table. Outside, the palace celebrated. Inside, a prince mourned, because the engagement was not a promise of love, it was a warning. And both he and Amara knew the king had chosen war against the heart. The guards did not arrive loudly. They never did. Two men stood at the edge of the village as the sun dipped low, their presence sharp against the ordinary rhythm of life. Amara felt it before she saw them. A chill crawled up her spine. One of them stepped forward as she gathered her dyed cloth. "You are Amara," he said flatly. It was not a question. Her heart pounded. but she lifted her chin. Yes, you have been seen, the guard continued, with someone you should not be seen with. Her breath caught. The palace does not tolerate confusion, the second guard added. Nor does the king forgive disobedience. Amara's hands trembled. Leave him, the first guard said coldly, or your mother will suffer for your mistake. They turned and walked away, leaving silence and terror behind. That night Amara did not sleep. She held her mother close, listening to every sound, knowing the shadow of the palace had finally reached her door. That same night, Prince Kadim went where he had not gone in days. To his mother, Queen Sophia listened without interruption as her son poured out everything: the river, the love, the fear, the threat. His voice broke when he spoke Amara's name. I love her, he said quietly. I love her more than the crown, more than life. Tears filled his eyes. If I must die for this love, he continued, then let me die knowing I chose my heart. The queen reached for him, pulling him into an embrace like when he was a child. My son, she whispered, stroking his hair, I was once forced to marry a man chosen for power. She pulled back, holding his face. I will not watch you live a life without love. She straightened, resolve hardening in her eyes. Tradition can survive, she said, but a broken heart cannot. Before dawn, Queen Sophia moved quietly. Trusted servants were summoned. Routes were planned. Names were never spoken aloud. Amara and her mother would leave the village before sunrise, to a distant place beyond the king's immediate reach. Not forever, just long enough for love to survive. The prince found Amara where they had always met, by the river. The moon bore witness. She ran to him when she saw him, fear and relief crashing together. My mother? She asked urgently. She will be safe, he promised. You both will. She exhaled shakily, tears spilling. I didn't want to leave without seeing you, she whispered. He pulled her into his arms, holding her like the world was trying to tear them apart. They spoke of the plan, of waiting, of patience, of hope. Then words failed them. Kadim cupped her face gently, as if memorizing her. I will come for you, he vowed. As a man who has chosen love openly, she nodded, crying softly. Their lips met slow, trembling, full of everything they could not say. Not rushed, not desperate, just love. They hugged, foreheads touching, hearts aching. No promises of ease, only promises of truth. As Amara disappeared into the path before dawn, Prince Kadim stood watching until she was gone. The palace still believed it was winning, but love had already escaped. The king did not beg. Kings do not beg. He summoned his son at night, when torches burned and shadows leaned close. You will marry the princess of the Eastern Kingdom, the king said. The coronation stands. The prince did not bow. I will not. The torches hissed. The king rose from his throne. You will forget the village girl. I will not forget Amara, the prince said, voice steady. I will not leave her, and I will not marry another. Silence struck the hall like a blade. The king's shadow stepped forward, the man whose eyes never blinked, whose presence meant disappearance. Bring the girl, the king commanded. The prince moved first. He stepped between the shadow and the throne. You will not touch her, he said. If you harm her, you will lose your heir. The elders shouted. The guards shifted. Never had a prince threatened his own father. You dare rebel? The king roared. I dare love, the prince replied, "and I will not be crowned king of a kingdom built on her blood." The choice of the throne. At dawn, the village was surrounded, but Amara was gone. The king's fury shook the palace walls. He doubled the guards. He forced the wedding preparations forward. On coronation day, drums thundered. Crowds filled the square. The prince appeared in royal red. Hope flickered. Then before the crown touched his head, he stepped back. "I refuse," he declared, loud enough for the ancestors to hear. "I will not marry the princess. I will not rule without Amara." Gasps tore through the crowd. The king stood. "If you walk away," he warned, "you walk as nothing." The prince removed the royal beads from his neck, then the ring, then the sandals. "I was born your son," he said, "but I choose to be her husband." He turned his back on the throne. Fire meets fire. Steel rang as guards moved. The queen screamed his name. The prince did not run. "If you kill me," he said, facing his father, "you will rule alone, and the people will remember you as the king who destroyed his own blood." The crowd murmured. The elders shifted. The ancestors listened. The king's hand trembled. The queen stepped forward, tears shining in her eyes. "My husband," she said softly, her voice breaking tradition more than any rebellion ever could. "If you force him, you will keep a crown, but lose a son." Slowly, painfully, he lowered it. "Find the girl," the king said finally. "Bring her back, not in chains." Messengers were sent at dawn. Amara was brought back hesitant, trembling, holding her mother's hand. She had lived every day expecting punishment, not mercy. When she entered the palace grounds, she froze. The prince was already there. No guards, no crown, only him. Their eyes met, and the world fell quiet again. He crossed the space between them and knelt before her, not as royalty, but as a man in love. "I choose you," he said simply. "Every life, every name, every future." Amara fell to her knees too, tears spilling freely. "I was afraid," she whispered. "So was I," he replied. "But love is braver than fear." The king watched from a distance as the queen held his arm. "She taught him how to listen," the queen said softly, "and he taught us how to love." The prince did not take the throne that year. Instead, he married Amara in a quiet ceremony beneath the Iroko tree where they first spoke as equals. Later, when the king grew old, the elders invited the prince back, not as a ruler by birth, but as a leader by choice. They say his reign was gentle. They say the kingdom prospered. They say tie and dye cloth became a royal art, and they still tell the story of the prince who learned love before power, and the girl whose courage changed a kingdom.